3 years ago, I thought a sleepover at my friend Lily's old Victorian house would be fun. I was 16 and needed a break from school stress. The house had weird creaks, but I figured it added to the charm. The first night was okay. We stayed up late, laughing and telling stories. I eventually fell asleep, but woke up to soft giggles coming from the attic. At first, I thought Lily was just playing a prank, even though she was sleeping beside me. I peeked over at her. She was out cold. The giggles faded away, and I tried to ignore it and go back to sleep. The next night felt different. The wind howled outside, making everything feel uneasy. I noticed flickering lights coming from the attic. I thought it was probably my imagination. I wanted to check it out, but didn't want to wake Lily. I stayed still, feeling a weight in my chest. It felt like something was watching me in the dark, but I couldn't see anything. On the third night, I found an old photograph on the hallway floor. I picked it up and nearly dropped it. The girl in it looked exactly like Lily, but her clothes were from decades ago. I felt sick. I showed it to Lily. She shrugged, saying it was just a distant relative. I didn't argue with her, but my gut told me something was off. The giggles started again each night. They grew clearer, almost like whispers. One time, while Lily was in the bathroom, I listened closely in the living room. The whispers echoed around me. A chill swept through the house. I wanted to convince myself it was just the old building, but the feeling of being watched wouldn't leave me. The last night arrived, and I made a decision to confront whatever was in the attic. My heart raced as I climbed the stairs. The door was slightly open. I pushed it, and darkness closed in. The air felt heavy. The giggles returned, now loud and surrounding me. I was terrified. Then I heard Lily call my name from behind me. The giggling stopped. I turned around, and there she was, standing in the doorway. The problem? She didn't look like herself. Her eyes were off, almost vacant, and for a split second, I thought I saw an echo of myself staring back at me in her reflection. "Lily?" I asked, my voice shaky. She stepped closer. "You shouldn't be here," she said, but it was almost like someone else spoke through her. I felt my stomach drop. The room spun. I wanted to run, but my feet felt rooted to the ground. "Lily, what's wrong?" I stammered. The darkness behind her swirled, and I noticed figures moving in the shadows. The giggles returned, just behind her. My vision blurred. I was hit with a rush of fear as I took a step back. Before I could scream, everything went dark. The giggles swallowed me, whole, and then nothing. I didn't know how long I was out. Darkness wrapped around me like a thick blanket. But suddenly, a light pierced through the void, and I found myself on the attic floor. My head throbbed. I sat up, barely able to catch my breath. I looked around, disoriented. The room was empty, but the whispers were gone. The giggles had vanished, leaving an uneasy silence that settled into my bones. I wiped my eyes and tried to gather my thoughts. "Lily?" I called out. My voice felt so small in that cold space. No response. I stood up, shaky on my feet, and turned to the doorway. I didn't want to leave, but I needed to find her. The dread from moments before still clung to me like wet clothing. I slowly walked over to the stairs, fighting the urge to run. As I descended, I noticed something strange at the bottom. A shadow danced in the hallway, just out of reach of the flickering light from the wall sconce. I squinted, but it was gone before I could make sense of it. My heart pounded. Was it just a trick of the light or something more? When I reached the last step, I saw Lily's bedroom door slightly ajar. The air felt different, almost electric. I pushed the door open and stepped inside, calling her name again. No answer. I felt hollow, a sense of dread filling the spaces in my chest. I frowned, looking around. Her room seemed untouched, except for a small note on her desk. Curiosity tugged at me. I approached it and read the messy handwriting. "I'm sorry. You were right about the attic." I felt a cold touch of fear creeping back. What did that even mean? I quickly glanced at her closet, then her bed. Everything seemed normal, but normal felt like a lie now. I went back into the hallway, convinced I heard a faint whisper again, echoing from the attic. "Lily?" I whispered, my voice uncertain. I wanted to believe she was just playing a prank again, but my instincts screamed otherwise. I walked back to the stairs, my resolve hardening. I had to know what was happening. As I climbed up once more, the darkness felt heavier, like it was alive. It clung to my skin. I reached the attic door and paused for a moment. Taking a deep breath, I pushed it open. This time, the room was lit. Candles flickered around me, casting tall shadows on the walls. The air smelled sweet, like flowers. But I felt panic rise when I noticed the photographs lining the walls. All of them were of girls who looked exactly like Lily at different ages. I stepped closer to get a better look. They wore old-fashioned dresses, like the girl in the photograph I found earlier. In my gut, I felt a growing certainty that I had uncovered something truly unsettling. But that wasn't all. In the center of the room sat a dusty mirror, ornate and shining. I caught my breath when I saw someone standing behind me in its reflection. Someone who looked just like me, but with Lily's vacant eyes. That's when I felt a sharp tug on my shirt. I spun around to see the darkness swirling again as laughter erupted from the shadows, louder than ever. There was no escape this time. I was trapped in a game I didn't understand, and every heartbeat echoed the fear of what would come next. I didn't think I could feel more trapped, but then I noticed the mirror in front of me fading. The laughter echoed louder, twisting and morphing into something more sinister. I tried to look away, but it was impossible. The reflection of my face blended with Lily's image. Those empty eyes stared right through me, and it felt like they were pleading for help. Then, without warning, the mirror rattled against the floor. The sound jolted me, breaking the spell. I stumbled back, catching myself against the wooden walls of the attic. My heart raced. I had to escape, but as I turned to flee, a loud bang reverberated behind me. I spun around. The mirror reflected nothing but the wall, but I knew something was there. I darted to the nearest candle. It flickered wildly as I approached, illuminating the photographs again. Each girl in the pictures wore smiles that seemed too wide, too perfect. Their eyes were bright, but they felt lifeless, like puppets frozen in time. A chill crept up my spine as I wondered if they had all vanished like Lily. The darkness thickened around me, and I felt the shadows shifting. I caught a glimpse of a figure darting past the corner of my eye, but when I turned, there was nothing, just air. The laughter continued, but now it felt like it was coming from inside my head, echoing the fear I had kept at bay. "Lily, where are you?" I shouted, my voice breaking. I felt ridiculous, standing alone in an attic surrounded by strange sights, but I had to believe she was here, somewhere. Then I heard it, a soft, fragile whisper. It floated through the air, slipping around me like silk. "Help me." It wasn't Lily's voice. My skin prickled as I slowly moved towards the sound, compelled by a bizarre magnetism. In the far corner, hidden behind a pile of dusty old blankets, I noticed a glint of something shiny. My pulse quickened as I knelt down, pushing the blankets aside. I uncovered an old music box, intricately carved and sealed tight with dust. The whispers grew louder, urging me to open it. But as I reached for the latch, a cold breeze swept through the attic, extinguishing the candles. The room was plunged into darkness. Panic gripped me as the laughter intensified, bouncing off the walls, shifting from playful to mocking. I fumbled for the music box, trying to calm my racing heart. "What do you want?" I yelled into the darkness, but the whispers morphed into a cacophony, drowning out my voice. That's when I felt it, something icy brushing against my arm. I froze as fear coursed through my veins. I jerked away, but the shadows seemed to shriek in protest. I turned to run, but the way back felt blocked. The darkness had a weight, a presence that pressed against me. Just when I thought I couldn't take it anymore, the shadows parted just enough for me to see the mirror again. In its reflection, something shifted. A figure was emerging, another girl with the same vacant eyes as Lily. Except this one was different. She smiled. I couldn't breathe. The moment stretched like a tight elastic band. That smile widened, and I understood. I was not alone in the attic, and the darkness had plans for me. I backed up slowly, my heart thudding like a drum in my chest. The girl in the mirror had stepped further into view, her smile eerily comforting against the chaos around me. I glanced tentatively at the music box, desperate to leap into action, but my body felt frozen. Just then, the whispers crescendoed, compelling as they were frantic. "Unlock it," they urged, blending into the chorus of laughter that erupted abruptly. It felt like the walls were closing in, echoing the madness of this attic. Unlock it! I couldn't take it anymore. With trembling fingers, I reached for the latch of the music box, my mind racing with doubt. Was this the key to finding Lily? To breaking whatever hold this place had on me? I barely heard the low thrum of the laughter as I flicked the latch open. The box came alive, its melody drifting into the air like a nostalgic thread. The music was beautiful and haunting, both at once. It filled the attic, but drowned out the whispers, offering a strange sense of calm. I took a breath, feeling slightly tethered to reality. And then, as the first notes of the song played out, something shifted in the room. The mirror cracked, a line snaking across the glass, distorting the smiling girl's face. My stomach churned. I had hoped the music would free me, but it seemed to only energize the atmosphere. A storm brewing just beneath the surface. "Stop it!" I shouted at the mirror, anger rising in my chest. I turned back to the music box, hoping to close it again, but my fingers wouldn't cooperate. They twitched with urgency, urging me to keep playing. I had to know what was on the other side of the mirror. Suddenly, the candlelight flickered back to life, illuminating the edges of the room. The music filled the air and resonated against the walls, and for a moment, everything felt stable. But when I looked back at the mirror, the girl was gone. A new shadow appeared in her place. A dark figure loomed behind me in the corner, the air around me. It's thick and heavy. I turned quickly, my breath caught in my throat. I could feel it watching me, its presence sharp and piercing. Panic bubbled in my throat as I fumbled for the nearest object. I was ready to defend myself against whatever was lurking in the shadows. "Show yourself," I rasped, trying to sound braver than I felt. But the laughter returned, a low, rumbling sound that set my teeth on edge. I braced myself, expecting the worst. What had I unleashed? In that instant, the lid of the music box snapped shut, ending the song abruptly. The sounds evaporated into silence, and the attic plunged back into darkness again. I was left with my own frantic breaths, the weight of what had changed heavy in the air. Then came a low voice, smooth yet wavering. "You shouldn't have opened it." My heart sank as I recognized it. A voice from the mirror, a voice that wanted something from me. I was paralyzed, the realization hitting me like a cold wave. The laughter faded, replaced by a stillness that felt worse than the chaos. Something was in here with me, and it wanted me to play its game. I felt my pulse quicken. The voice wrapped around me like a vine, squeezing tighter with each word. I wanted to scream, to run, but my body still refused to obey. In that crushing silence, the darkness inside the attic seemed to breathe, expanding with each shallow breath I took. "Why?" I managed to whisper, both to the voice and to the space around me. The shadows shifted, as if mocking my question. There was no reply, just that oppressive stillness. I strained my ears, listening for any movement, any sign of what was lurking in the corners. Then, breaking through the silence, came the music again, soft and persistent. The music box had somehow reopened itself, and the melody poured out, invoking memories I didn't want to relive. Images of Lily flooded my mind, her laughter ringing like a bell. I knew she wouldn't want this for me. She wouldn't want me here. Fighting back against my fear, I took a step toward the box, determined to stop the music. But before I could reach it, the temperature in the attic plummeted, and I saw my breath mist in the air. A gust of icy wind swept through the room, rattling the old beams and stealing my breath. "Lily!" I shouted, hoping she could hear me, hoping I wasn't too late. The laughter returned, louder now, mingling with the music, an unsettling harmony. I whipped around,
And that's when something caught my eye. A shimmer in the cracked mirror. The girl from before was back, but she looked different. Her smile had dropped, replaced by a look of desperation mingled with malice. I squinted, trying to catch the details of her face, when the whispers returned, urgent and overlapped. "Don't let her in. Don't let her take you." Before I could process their
Warning. The mirror rippled like water, and I felt a pull, an invisible force beckoning me closer. My feet were drawn toward it, as if it were some magnetic abyss, promising answers or perhaps something worse. "Stop! Get away from me!" I screamed, my voice breaking. The lid of the music box slammed shut again, leaving only the haunting echo in the darkness. The shadows shifted once more, moving toward me like a tidal wave of despair. That's when I saw it, a flicker of movement behind the broken glass. A hand reaching out. Panic shot through me. "No, I won't!" I turned to flee, but the room suddenly felt small and constricting. The walls seemed to close in as laughter echoed around me. I dashed toward the ladder, but I stumbled, falling onto the dusty floor. Everything felt disorienting. The music, the laughter, the overwhelming dread suffocating me. And then, amidst the chaos, everything stopped. Complete silence enveloped the attic. I lay there, breathless, pressing my hands against the floor. The shadows dissipated at the sound of one final giggle, soft like a breeze, yet sharp enough to send a shiver down my spine. Whatever that thing was, it was still here, lurking, waiting. I needed to escape, to uncover the truth before it was too late. But now, the question loomed larger than ever. What was behind that mirror, and what did it want from me? I don't know how long I lay there, gasping for air on the cold wooden floor. My heart raced, but the thick silence pressed down harder than the fear had. Finally, I managed to push myself up, surveying the attic for any signs of movement. The music was gone, replaced by an echoing nothingness. I crawled toward the ladder, the wood rough against my palms. Every little creak made my skin crawl. I needed to get out of there, away from the shadows and the whispers. I hesitated, checking the corners of the room, as if expecting something to jump out at me. All I saw were traces of dust moving in the dim light. But as I reached for the rungs, a cold breeze swept past my face again. I shivered, turning to look over my shoulder. The mirror reflected nothing, just the darkened room behind me. But something pulsed beneath the surface, a reminder of the hand I had seen reaching out. With newfound determination, I gripped the ladder and pulled myself up, every muscle in my body screaming to hurry. Once I reached the ground floor, I stumbled into the hall, still shaking from the encounter. I had to collect my thoughts. I needed to talk to someone, anyone, who might know about that mirror, that girl. But the house felt empty now, more than usual. My family was out, leaving me alone. I hurried to grab my phone, glancing at the clock on the wall. It was much later than I had thought. "What does that mean?" I whispered to myself. Had I really been up there for so long? What had I missed while I was trapped in that attic? I dialed Lily's number, despite knowing her parents wouldn't answer. I needed the comfort of her voice, the assurance that everything was okay. The call went straight to voicemail, and I hung up, the tight knot of anxiety tightening even further in my chest. Suddenly, I recalled something. The stories Lily used to tell about the girl in the mirror. Stories she dismissed as just tales, but I had brushed them off as innocent childhood fantasies. My throat tightened at the thought. What if there was truth in those stories? What if the girl had been trying to get out all along? A loud thump echoed from the attic. My heart skipped as I spun toward the staircase. I had to go back up. Just the thought sent a fresh wave of fear coursing through me. But I couldn't let fear dictate my actions anymore. I needed answers. As I ascended the stairs, the shadows seemed to twist and curl around me, watching. The air grew heavy.
each step making me feel like I was being pulled deeper into that dark place. When I reached the attic doorway, I hesitated. Just beyond the door was the unknown, a fear I had yet to face fully. And then, as if sensing my fear, I heard that laugh again. A sweet sound, echoing in that empty attic, but now it felt tainted. Someone was there. I pushed the door open, ready to confront whatever awaited me. But what I saw sent a chill down my spine. The mirror stood in the center of the room, now completely undisturbed. But it seemed different. It shimmered, like it was alive, pulsating gently as if breathing. That's when I noticed something else. A shadow branching out from the mirror, creeping along the floor toward me. My breath hitched in my throat. I was about to discover something much darker than I had ever anticipated. And whatever lurked behind it could be more than just a reflection. I stood frozen, staring at the shadow stretching across the attic floor. It moved like a living entity, slinking toward me. And all rational thought fled from my mind. I couldn't take my eyes off it. There was something so wrong about that shadow, something that filled me with a primal dread. "What do you want?" I managed to say, my voice trembling. The question hung in the air, heavy and unanswered. The laughter I had heard earlier echoed faintly again, now more sinister. And that did nothing to ease my frayed nerves. The shadow paused. For a moment, it felt like time had stopped, like everything within its reach was frozen in place. Then it surged forward, fast and unexpected. I stumbled back, barely catching myself on the doorframe. My heart raced, my instincts screaming at me to run. But I couldn't. Curiosity pulled at me like a chain. I needed
to know what was happening. Slowly, I stepped back inside the dim attic, the wooden floor creaking under my weight. As I moved closer to the mirror, I felt an indescribable pull, as if the unknown was calling my name. The mirror's surface began to shift. I could see a vague outline forming, something behind the glass becoming clearer. It looked like a girl, but not just any girl, the girl from Lily's stories. Her mouth moved, but no sound came out. It seemed she was trying to say something, to warn me. Suddenly, a loud crack snapped through the eerie silence, and the mirror cracked. It splintered like ice, but held together, an intricate spiderweb of fractures. Fear coursed through me. "What are you?" I whispered, pleading, but aware that the answer might be worse than the question. The shadow shifted again, rising like smoke. I could feel it chill invading the attic, squeezing the breath from my lungs. I couldn't let it get any closer. My legs screamed to flee, but I needed to stay. I needed to understand what was happening. "Help me!" The girl's voice finally broke through the silence, sounding muffled yet desperate. My pulse quickened. Was she trapped in there? Was she the reason for the laughter? The fear morphed into a deep concern. If I didn't do something, what would happen to her? What would happen to me? In a sudden moment of clarity, I remembered Lily's tales about the girl trying to escape, trapped by an unbreakable bond to the mirror. "I can help you," I shouted, standing tall despite the overwhelming dread. "Tell me how." But the shadow surged forward, merging with the cracks in the mirror. Instinctively, I stepped back, eyes wide at the sight of the shadow melding with the reflections. The girl's face twisted in anguish. In a split second, I understood. I was at a crossroads. The moment was disorienting and terrifying. Would I have the courage to dive into the unknown, to save someone I barely understood? Before I could think, the mirror rattled, just as a loud thump echoed behind me, making my heart lurch. Someone else was in the house. Panic shot through me, but I was already too deep to turn back. I had to make a choice. I couldn't ignore the thump. My heart raced as I turned my head towards the attic door. The sound had come from downstairs, close, too close. I felt trapped.
This attic had become a strange battleground between the shadow and the girl in the mirror, but now there was a new threat looming in the house. I hesitated. Should I call out? If there was someone there, it could be a friend, or far worse, something sinister. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself, but then the shadows darted again. I could see them flickering outside the reach of the dim light. My body tensed. "Help me!" the girl pleaded again. Her voice echoed in my mind, mingling with my fear. I couldn't abandon her. I glanced back at the mirror, seeing the girl's face twisted in anxiety. She needed me. In a moment of reckless bravery, I stepped closer to the mirror. "What do I need to do?" I whispered, feeling the pull drawing me in, like someone was grasping my hand from the other side. Suddenly, the shadows flared, and the laughter swelled, drowning my thoughts in a wave of darkness. The mirror rippled again, the cracks spreading, as the girl's eyes widened in terror. I felt a jolt, like a surge of electricity coursing through my veins. The attic grew colder, and I shivered as I braced myself against the wooden beams. That's when I noticed it, an object glinting from the corner of the attic. My gaze was drawn away from the girl, despite her desperate calls. I turned to see a small, dusty box tucked behind an old trunk. It seemed out of place, almost beckoning for my attention. Instinct kicked in. I shuffled towards it, my heart pounding against my ribcage. I could still feel the vibrations of laughter in the air. The box was wooden, covered in strange carvings that seemed to pulse in the gloom. Whatever it held was likely tied to everything happening in that attic. Another loud thump echoed from downstairs, demanding my attention again. I froze, sensing the urgency of the moment. I needed to decide. Open the box or confront whatever lurked beyond the attic door. The girl's face appeared in the mirror once more, her eyes pleading. "Please." I shot a glance back at the box. "What are you hiding?" I whispered, torn. "Help me," she urged again, her desperation tearing at my heartstrings. I took a shaky breath and opened the box, heart racing as I prepared for whatever it may release. Perhaps what was inside could lead me to help her. Or maybe I was about to unleash something worse. As the lid creaked open, a brilliant light burst forth, illuminating the attic. I shielded my eyes, a gasp escaping my lips, and suddenly, everything went dark. When the darkness faded, I was no longer in the attic. Panic washed over me as I scanned my surroundings. I was in a narrow hallway, dimly lit by flickering light bulbs. The air was thick and stale, and an unsettling chill curled around me. I wished I could retreat back into the safety of the attic, but the sensation of something closing in made me stay put. I stepped cautiously, listening for any sounds, a whisper, a rustle, anything. Breathing deeply, I remembered the girl in the mirror. "What just happened?" I whispered to myself. Confusion swept over me like a cold tide. Had I really just opened that box? I felt a knot form in my stomach. Then I heard it, a whisper. "Help me, please." It came from somewhere deeper down the hall. I gritted my teeth and willed myself to move forward. With every
step, the walls seemed to close in. Dark shadows undulated just beyond the edge of the light. "Where are you?" I called out, desperation creeping into my voice. "Follow me," the voice trailed off, echoing through the hall. My heart raced as I made my choice. I had to find her. I started walking, following the beckoning pull of the voice. As I passed a door slightly ajar, I hesitated. A sudden gust brushed against my cheek. I froze, looking back. The door creaked open wider on its own, inviting yet foreboding. I could see a faint outline of a figure just inside. The weight of my fear battled with the urge to run. "Is that you?" I asked, my voice trembling. Nothing but silence answered. The air grew heavier. My instinct screamed at me to flee, but I forged ahead. I peeked inside, half expecting to find something horrible. Instead, the room was empty, save for a dusty old chair in the center. On it lay a piece of paper, crumpled and torn. I stepped inside, reaching for the paper. It felt like fate. Whatever it held might explain what was going on.
As I unfolded the worn edges, my heart sank. Written in jagged letters was a single sentence. They are watching. Before I could process it, I heard the unmistakable sound of footsteps behind me, slow and deliberate. I whipped around, adrenaline surging through my veins. "Who's there?" I called out. But there was no one, only that chilling darkness pressing against me. My pulse quickened as I backed away toward the door, the words ringing in my ears. I needed to get back to the attic to figure this out, but the hallway twisted and turned as if it had come alive. The panic clawed at me, and I realized I was lost. Then, just like that, the lights flickered one last time before plunging me into darkness again. Something brushed my shoulder, icy and cold, and a voice whispered so close to my ear, "You shouldn't have come here." I gasped, terror shattering my thoughts. I spun around, but there was nothing. Only the oppressive silence of the hallway surrounded me. My heart raced. I gripped the crumpled paper tightly, feeling the tremors run through my fingers. "Get a grip," I whispered to myself, but fear wouldn't let me go. I had to find a way out of this endless hallway, a way back to the attic, back to whatever could bring me closer to Lily. The echo of footsteps still lingered, playful but sinister. I retreated slowly, unsure of which way to go. Every door felt like a stare, the darkness beyond each threshold a hidden threat. Just as I prepared to bolt, a flickering light caught my eye from down the corridor. I moved toward it, willing myself not to think of what might lurk behind. As I approached, I recognized the warm glow of an old lamp that seemed almost cozy amidst the chaos, illuminating a
Small table. On it lay a mirror, another one. My breath caught in my throat. The frame was ornate, intricate patterns swirling down the sides, inviting me to look closer. Resisting the urge, I cast a glance over my shoulder. The path seemed clear, yet eerie, shadows flickering like dreams lost in the corners of my mind. And then that whisper came again, coaxing me. "Help me, please." I grimaced, torn between fear of facing the dark reflection and the desire to help whatever was trapped within. "What do I do?" I murmured to myself, glancing back at the lamp. In that moment, my resolve shifted. Whatever was on the other side of the mirror wanted someone to step in, and I wasn't going to run away anymore. Gripping the edges of the table, I leaned in. The surface shimmered unnaturally, a surface that felt almost liquid. Could I reach through? The images of Lily flickered in my mind, her expression a haunting mix of hope and worry. I reached out, my hand poised to touch the glass. But a louder thud came from behind me, shaking the floor beneath my feet. I spun, but the hallway was still empty. The shadows had shifted closer, creeping like tendrils of smoke. "This is madness," I muttered, clenching my fists. There was no choice left. I took a step forward, hand brushing against the mirror once more. The reflection rippled, pulling me in like it was alive, a hypnotic presence washing over me. The whispers crescendoed into urgent pleas, surging with a stretching desperation that echoed in my chest. "I won't forget you. I won't leave you." The moment felt surreal, as if everything slowed down only for me. With no time to reconsider, I pressed my palm against the glass, feeling a sudden shock ripple through me. The light surged and flickered violently, illuminating half-formed faces behind the glass, distorted, twisted beings that looked like girls caught midway in laughter and delight, but mingled with despair. And then the world spun. The pull intensified, wrapping around me like a chokehold, pulling me deep into the mirror. The darkness swallowed me, and everything felt as though it was collapsing in on itself. My body thrashed against it. And just as suddenly, I was released, thrown backward into the hallway. I tumbled onto the cold floor, gasping for air. Pain shot through my body. My mind swam, and I struggled to regain my senses. Alone on the ground, I breathed heavily,
realizing that I was now somewhere different. Could it be a different time? The hushed whispers were louder than before, wrapping around me like tendrils of silk. I scrambled to my feet, ready to bolt back to the attic, but then the chilling figures stepped from the shadows. They appeared as swirling forms, flickering with every breath I took. A multitude of girls, faces shifting, eyes vacant and hungry. They reached out to me, fingers stretching like longing hands. I stammered, looking for an escape. That's when I saw it, the glint of the music box on the ground, glowing faintly like it held the key to it all. Without thinking, I lunged for it. "I can help you! I can help us!" I shouted into the void, desperation mingling with defiance. As my fingers clasped around the box, the laughter turned into a cacophony, cries of agony mixing with delights of fleeting joys. The shadows flared, curling tight around me. I opened the music box, letting its melody spill into the air, wrapping around everything like an ethereal thread. The shadows swirled, the laughter turned to wails, and the forms around me began to converge. I saw Lily's face in the reflection of the box, a fleeting moment of clarity amidst the turmoil. With every note, I felt the shadows begin to recede, retreating into the darkness from which they came. But when I glanced again, the mirror behind me shimmered with a new intensity, rippling like water but unbroken. Something inside that mirror hungered. I looked at the girls around me, their faces morphing into one. "I can help you," I called again, but their pleading stares told me the truth. This wasn't just about me. They wanted to escape, as did Lily. And yet, the price loomed large. A sacrifice, a decision not yet made. As my heart raced, I felt the swift passage of time. Shadows began to encroach once more, panic pulsing in my veins, and I had only moments to choose: join them or pull them back to the surface. So I closed my eyes and took a deep breath, letting the music box's melody guide me. The echoes of laughter started to fade, but I knew something was still waiting beyond that surface. I understood. Freedom was a paradox, wrestling between promises and horrors left unresolved. With one final glance behind, I made my choice. I reached my hand back toward that mirror, feeling it pulse with an ancient force, an invitation I couldn't refuse. I wasn't sure if I could enter it, break the spell, or fail to protect what needed saving. Would I become another lost face between laughter and whispers? All I knew was something had to give, and it was time to find out what lay in the heart of darkness. And for that flicker of eternity between breaths, I was both alive and still waiting.